Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another spoiler review of the, well, not final, but right before we watch Spider-Man No Way Home, I want to wrap up all my Spider-Man filmography uh, uh, with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which seems more apt considering that we're going to be doing a lot of Spider-Verse things in Spider-Man No Way Home. So if you want to hear my thoughts on all the Sam Raimi films, all the John Watts films, and all the Mark Webb films, check out my review of those films up on the channel, on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Of course, follow me on my Twitter, at Talkative Carl, if you want to know whenever I'm live, so you can join in on these discussions. And of course, if you want to further support the channel, definitely follow me on my Patreon. That's patreon.com/talkativecarl. And of course, if you want to follow me live as I do my video game walkthroughs that I do a lot, follow me on my Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/talkativecarl. All the links are in the descriptions, and of course, your likes and shares and views are greatly appreciated. So, yeah, let's finally wrap up all the Spider-Man. Well, not completely, but just about to. So, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Just a side note, this movie is the last movie that I got. It probably won't be the last, but thanks to streaming, I don't know when the next time I'm ever going to get like a hard copy DVD. But my little brother got me Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse on DVD. I should have brought that out before I started the video just to show you guys. But he got that for my birthday a couple years back. And yeah, I mean, I love Spider-Man. I say that a lot. I played all the Spider-Man, well, I don't want to say all the Spider-Man games. I wish they kind of remastered certain games like Ultimate Spider-Man that previously was on the Nintendo GameCube, and remastered it. But if you want to see my walkthroughs, video game walkthroughs of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, it's one of my earliest video game walkthroughs on the Xbox 360. Check that out on my YouTube channel. It's right in there. You can just easily look it up if you're subscribed to the channel. No commentary, and this is before I got like the audio set up properly at that time. Also, you can check out my PS4 Spider-Man walkthrough. I replayed it on my PS5 soon after I got the console. And then, of course, watch my walkthrough of... No, I didn't do the... I don't think I did the PS5 version of 2018 Spider-Man game. But I have the walkthrough up on the channel, so you can check that out as well as the Miles Morales. I know I definitely did the PS4 and PS5 version. Had no choice but to get the PS4 version at that time because those PS5s was like going quick. And by the time I gotten it, I've been long since done with Miles Morales game. But I replayed it for my PS5, so you can check out the impressive details. So you can check that out on the channel as well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Spider-Man 2 once that comes out in 2023, so almost a year. So I just need to start doing some more Spider-Man comics to review on the channel. And all things considered, given this movie and No Way Home, I think I need to do there's one particular comic run that I want to do for Peter B. Parker 616 version, one for a run for Spider-Gwen, one for Spider-Man Noir, Peter Porker, Spider-Pig, uh, I want to do one for. I tried looking it up for like Penny Parker, the anime version of Spider-Man, but she doesn't have a solo run, which is funny. You'll think after this movie, Marvel will be like on it with giving her run, because I really like Penny Parker, and because she's very Sailor Moonish kind of anime style. But of course, there is technically an anime type of version of Spider-Man called manga Spider-Man, which is kind of like a manga style, which still fits in that same role. I want me just do one for him in her stead, and Spider-Man 2099, and like, you know, maybe in the new year I'll do it, because this month in December, my next comic book review will be short. It'll be Batman Noel. I'll probably take care of that maybe next week at some point for the holidays. But yeah, it's I got like, you know, all but like the comics for Spider-Man related stuff, because I had a profile of Spider-Man on my various channels because I love that character so much. As a matter of fact, I almost forgot. Hold on a second. Almost forgot to put this on. A second. Where is it? I wanted to wear this because of Spider-Verse. Like, I just need like I have a mask of Miles Morales, but it's way like in the closet, and I can't really wear it thanks to my, you know, locks. So, but I'm gonna put this on because I wanted to have this on, but I forgot. Well, I'll put it on now. Because I might put this on when I go see Spider-Verse. It's kind of tight in the armpits here, but I'm not going to zip it up or anything like that. But yeah. So yeah, Spider-Verse, man. How do I look? It's like, this is say I eat carry the math, call it quits, baby, you're a wreck. Press at my place, baby, you're a wreck. Sorry, I just had to do that because, like, oh man, I love Miles Morales. Like, so freaking good. He's such a great character, brilliant, like, creation. So yeah, let's get right into the movie. This is it's like an Academy Award-winning animated movie, mind you. Like, it's probably one of the first rare occasions. You know, it's probably not the first, but like one of the few rare occasions where not only critics but audience as well are in complete agreement, locked in with like Rotten Tomatoes and, you know, all this other stuff, are all in unison, in agreement that this movie is like over 90%, like over 95 to 97% on Rotten Tomatoes as far as like impressive movie. Very well crafted, very well done, very well acted. It's like, on paper, initially, you would not think this will work out. People had their doubts. You know, when the first mention of this and then the first trailer of this, people had their doubts. Especially because how they're having their doubts about No Way Home right now. How are you going to fit so many different Spider-Man and women and pigs on who has different styles that you would think will clash with each other, but they do it so seamlessly that it's freaking incredible. Kind of like break the mold of what we're used to in animation in the West, especially with like, because if you heard of the term DreamWorks face, that you understand how like we gotten so pigeonholed to a particular look to a character, because they always got that because if you want to portray like like a very cocky attitude, but always about to get in some mischief, that look, you get DreamWorks face, like, oh, wait. I can't do it. I don't know why I can't do it. It's like, that look, that stupid DreamWorks face, and I don't know why. I think this movie kind of broke the mold so far as like getting away from that DreamWorks face. It's not made by DreamWorks, but it's like if we want to, I think this is kind of movie where you want to repeat the kind of animation for, or at least show you that at least other animation studios that, hey, let's break out of that mold and try something new with different animations. Let's have some fun with this. Some might not work, but you'll get credit for at least trying, instead of like relying on like certain things that got old 10 years ago. It's crazy because prior to this movie, a lot of DreamWorks did it. It's not even DreamWorks, Pixar did it of their fair share as well. All right, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, directed by Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, Rodney Rothman, screenplay by Phil Lord and Rodney Rothman, and starring Shamik Moore, Jake Johnson, a fellow Chicagoan from I first saw him on New Girl. He's great. I love him as an actor. Haley Steinfeld, Kate Bishop, plays Spider-Gwen. Shamik Moore plays Miles Morales. Jake Johnson plays Peter Parker, the 616 main continuity version of Spider-Man. Haley Steinfeld plays Spider-Gwen. Mahershala Ali plays Prowler. Brian Tyree Henry plays Jefferson Davis, Miles' father. Lily Tomlin plays May Parker. Luna Lauren Velez plays Rio Morales. She was the police captain on the TV show Dexter, in case you don't know. Zoe Kravitz as Mary J. Watson. John Mulaney as Peter Porker. He was on SNL. Or is currently on SNL, I think. Kimiko Galan, who voices Penny Parker, the Japanese Spider Woman. Nicolas Cage as Peter Parker, Spider-Man Noir. Catherine Hahn as Olivia Octavia as Dr. Octopus. And Liv Shriver, probably I say a great Sabretooth. I might be in a minority in that, but I liked him as Sabretooth, to be honest with you guys. And part of me kind of wishes they bring him back. Wilson Fisk as Kingpin. And then, of course, you got Chris Pine as the ultimate version of Peter Parker, who's in the same universe as Miles Morales. And just a side note, ultimate Peter Parker in that universe, because not many people know this, but if you're not in the know of comics like that, especially for Peter Parker's lore, 616 Peter Parker is in the standard universe Prime Spider-Man, where all these other Spider people kind of branch off of in a way. And he started in like the traditional, the way Stan Lee created him from like the 60s moving forward to present day. Chris Pine is playing the ultimate version of Peter Parker, who started like if he was, instead of being created in the 60s, he created in like late 90s, early 2000s up to present day. So youngest, more competent Peter Parker. But in the Ultimate Universe, he died saving the city, which led to Miles Morales picking up the mantle. Eventually we'll cover Miles Morales, in his own comic run eventually, because I really want to get to that as well. Just a little minor background on this. So I just want to make sure I got everybody's names right in the casting and so forth. So the way this opens is so brilliantly done. I cannot tell you how cool it was shot. Whereas like you get like, because if you have any understanding of the history of comic book creation, if you know anything about Ben-Day dots, it's like these little multicolored circles. It's like very microscopic. If you look closely to an older 60s created comic, you'll see Ben-Day dots. If you look closely enough, you see them kind of very vividly. That once you pull back, it kind of forms a shade of color. And it kind of utilized that in a brilliant way for certain shots. It's like comic books lifted off the page, and it's brilliantly done. It's like, and like utilizing, it's got to be like, I'm pretty sure, I cannot recall, different artists working on different, graphics and art, and kind of seamlessly blends together in unison that doesn't clash in a way which you would think it would. It's like, there's certain pastels, and I don't know the specific art style for, because like if you see like certain shots of different Spider-Man in their own particular universe, it's a different art style to represent what their universe is normally supposed to look like. It's like watercolors or like, it's like kind of like, I don't know, it's like, how like paint kind of runs on purpose kind of thing. That's kind of like how Spider-Gwen's universe looks, when it's like kind of like a little bit streaky, while this very graffiti art Ben-Day type of thing in Miles Morales universe. And 616 main universe, Peter Parker's, his universe is like just standard colors. It's nothing too outrageous. It's pretty, like modern. And then you got Peter Parker's very, Looney Tunes. So we gotta expect that. And then of course Penny Parker's universe is very Sailor Moon anime manga thing. It's very exaggerated Dragon Ball Z type of stuff. And they all, when they're together, and then the Spider-Man Noir is very black and white, very 1930s-ish. Is like, very black and, just number black and white, very very something Miller, who did it's kind of like The Spirit and what's that freaking crap? What's that movie with Rosario Dawson and crap? I gotta look this up because it's gonna. It's gonna bug me. What's her? I'm gonna use. Cause I remember her. Sin City. God, no, thank you. Sin City. Cause like it's kind of like pull. Frank Miller, that was the name. It's kind of like they pulled. It utilizes a lot of Frank Miller's work with Sin City and like The Spirit in the Spider-Man Noir's universe, and it's so cool. It's like when he's played by Nicolas Cage. It's like, and Nicolas Cage is so good. It's so good. It's like everything he says. Like you can listen to him talk all day. I don't even care what it's about. It's like you believe anything Nicolas Cage says. It's like if he wants you to help help steal the Declaration of Independence. Okay, it seems legit. It's Nicolas Cage. Why the heck not? He seems like he knows what he's doing. He just makes you believe everything he says. When it's like he talks in a Humphrey Bogart type of style, and I love the heck out of it. A friend of mine who's not even into this comic book stuff like that. She knows, bits and pieces here and there, but her boyfriend wanted to see Spider-Verse in the theater, so they went together, and she loved the hell out of it, especially Nicolas Cage's part, because she laughed her ass off. It was like he's like in the rafters and the wind's blowing, and it's like, and they question, it's like, where's that wind coming from? And why is he in black and white? Where's that wind coming from? It's like, just doesn't even care. It's like, that's the thing. It's like, okay. It's like, we're in this. It's like, nothing's too outrageous. Who cares? Like, it cares a little bit, but it's, nothing's too outrageous to be not that unbelievable. So it's like, it's like he lighting a match. It's like, I light a match to feel something, anything. Oh, I'm Nicolas Cage. I was like, what else he say? It's like, oh, we don't pick the dance club. We just find our partners. We just find the dance partners, or something like that. He just talks in a very old 1930s language. This is so good. You big palooka. So you open where you see like I said, the Band-Aid dots with the Sony logo coming to you in to the forefront, and you see the Band-Aid dots forming the Sony logo, and then you see like the one with the torch. I forgot that not Paramount, but Columbia Pictures. And you see like even like the Columbia Pictures and like Sony Pictures Animation and Marvel Entertainment, like Pascal Pictures. You see all these like production companies logos coming up in the beginning of the in the film. It's so crafty that it's like you know what you're in for immediately. They setting the stage immediately. Like you see like different versions of like, if a universe had their own production company of the same name, of course they will have something, uniquely, artistically different. Where you see like, the Columbia Pictures, Torch Lady, come from the standard Liberty kind of position. Then all of a sudden you see like a swift change into like, a cowgirl shooting like, 6-shooters, and then back to the thing. It's like you see it's quick shift. You kind of like have to slow down so you get to see different iterations of this same figure, and you do that with all these little different production companies, and it's like so unique. And I thought that was brilliantly done, just setting the stage for what you're in for. Because at this point we already know what the premise is at this point. So then you get introduced to the ultimate version of Peter Parker, played by Chris Pine, and he's been, this version of Spider-Man for at least 10 years. And for all he knew, he was the one and only Spider-Man, defeating like Ultimate Green Goblin, Prowler, Scorpion, and so on. And then you get introduced to Miles Morales singing to Post Malone, which at that time I didn't even heard of Post Malone like that. And like this song grabbed me because I literally, right walking out of the theater, playing this on my phone on repeat because I love this. I was probably like my favorite Post Malone song. I got a little bit into Post Malone after this movie, and it's like at least a couple of Post Malone songs I love, but this one is number one in my heart. It's like if I had like a soundtrack for Spider-Man, it'd be Sunflower, Wake Up Danger, and then of course like Eminem's Venom song, and then of course like the classic like Spider-Man, and then that theme song, and then the remix for the 90s version of that song. And it's like, I mean, and then of course you can add like the sequel to Venom, the new song for Venom 2 by Eminem. It's alright. It's not as good as like the original uh, from Venom 1, but like I can throw that in there. It's like it could easily be a sound. It could easily be like at this point a good soundtrack. You could probably toss in like certain like iconic themes to like Sam Raimi's version, and then a theme to uh, John Watts and Mark Webb's Spider-Mans. So like you can like just like make a decent CD playlist of of Spider-Man stuff, themes at this point that really get you immersed into the Spider-Verse. You can call it like your Spider-Verse soundtrack. You can work out to almost. Uh, uh, so Miles Morales, he's his parents trying to get him ready to get to this new prep school. He got accepted in, even though this is a coming of age story. It's like it's like almost every kind of coming of age story with Miles Morales, but it all works. And he's like a very smart kid. Miles Morales is extremely smart, but unlike the game, which I made a comment on in one of my walkthrough videos of the Miles Morales game, where in that version he's like he's into music in the movie, but it's almost seemed like it's something like a easy profession he can easily get into in the game, and the art is kind of like secondary, whereas kind of like in the movie it's like reverse, where he's in the street art, which is great street art. In this, they utilize graffiti art, I can easily say they probably hired a graffiti artist as like not like a reference, but they call it like a consultant to make sure like in the graffiti art in this is like up to snuff, so it doesn't look gimmicky like somebody trying to fake graffiti art just to call it graffiti art. You actually got a graffiti artist to like show you how what you need for like certain colors. I love art. I'm not like a good artist, but I have like an appreciation of great art. And like I love looking at this movie. This is like a perfect example of superior art. And you see him like well, he's on his way to this because he's from Brooklyn. In the game, he's moves from Brooklyn to Harlem, but he's a Brooklyn kid, and like he has to go to this fancy prep school that he kind of wants some kind of contest in, but I guess his parents kind of push him into doing so because they want him to like have a great life and get every opportunity as possible, because he's half Puerto Rican, half black. And it's great on Mr. Moore's performance, because he obviously has some like coaching, because I don't know if he's like have any kind of Puerto Rican or even any Spanish background in his ancestry at all, but he obviously has some kind of coaching in order to how like people of Spanish background can like just flow from English to Spanish and back and forth so seamlessly. And that's what he did in his role, and it's like it's very believable. You want that believability, because otherwise it feels disingenuous to the character itself, because it has to be represented perfectly. He's that kind of thing is so important so far as like cultural representation. And of course, like you see that in the mother, and it's like that kind of like she like kissing him and like all over for like not just like let him go to school, and she's just still want to hug him and kiss him and everything like that. It's like typical moms, but I'm pretty sure like you'll see like if anybody if in like a Spanish family can probably relate to something like that, is that kind of thing. And so like he's passing by all the neighborhood kids that know him growing up, but now he's into and he's outside his element now, and he's got one of those kids who was like he doesn't want to deal with change. He's I mean, I can relate in a way because like I have a hard time with change myself, specifically when I was younger too. But eventually I grew out of that a little bit because I usually don't like change that I cannot control, which I needed like obviously work on that because when I'm forced into something that's outside my hands, I kind of resist because like I want to do it like in my own speed, and like Miles sitting like trying to throw up like uh stickers with his graffiti art on like street signs and whatnot, and then like got busted by his cop father who drives him the rest of the way uh to school for his first day. And of course they get into it a little bit. It was a funny little moment along the way to school where it's like you see kids he knew see him in the back of the car was getting a ride for his father. He's like, don't cops run red lights? Yeah, some do, but not your dad. And then you hear like news reports about like Spider-Man saving the day again, and of course Davis as a cop doesn't like appreciate Spider-Man's methods. He's like doesn't answer to nobody. He just comes in and like essentially he's a vigilante, so he is technically breaking the law despite him actually legitimately helping. But as a cop, he's kind of resistant on that. And of course, Miles is like hesitant on going into this school, and like him and his father had like a heated exchange, and like I kind of resisted. I'm not a parent, but like I've been in this position on the other side, whereas like a parent is like pretty much telling after the kid's like, why it feels like I don't have no choice? Because you don't. And that little minor blow up, and it's like I kind of want to see like cinema therapy kind of covered this moment where it's like parenting because there's a lot of like a guidance. There's a lot of parenting and guidance given to Miles with different kind of uncle, father, and mentor figures, all in one movie with Miles, with main Peter Parker and Aaron Davis and Miles's father. And it's like these different aspects, kind of like who chose different paths in their own way, and trying to like teach Miles, trying to teach Miles in their own way that only worked for them, but he's kind of like resistant because it's like it doesn't work with him. It's like, I mean, I'm not like a therapist or anything like that, but it's like that exchange that I'm resistant on the exchange that the father said that you don't have a choice, and it's like I'm resistant on that because like because obviously which is a great performance just by the animation that he like for that split second he knew he kind of effed up by saying that to his own son. Like, you don't have a choice. Like, of course the kid has a choice. I mean, everybody has choices. Just like as a child that's still living under the parents' roof, they're below the age of 18, and especially below the age of 21. Their choices are limited, but they still have a choice. And like, maybe he mentions it's been like a couple of weeks that they having this discussion, but obviously they want him to get into this prep school to give him like a better life and better opportunities. But as parents, like, we know better now than we knew then, as far as like how handling kids and talk to them, like eye to eye, not talk down to them, because that's obviously proven to not to be an effective tool for like parenting. But what Aaron's, was it Aaron Davis Jefferson Davis? That's the father. Jefferson Davis should have. I mean, I'm pretty sure they probably at some point earlier to this moment, but I mean, a parent, it tends to blow up on a kid in not unforeseen ways, but it's something like, a kid can probably get on your nerves. I probably will experience that at some point in my life where it's like, my kid will probably say something to kind of get on my nerves, but you try not to blow up on them like that, because he kind of like realized he blew up on him like unnecessarily, but he's not necessarily wrong. What he should have told him was like, he probably did, but he should have told him like at that moment, like, son, I know this is scary. You're in a new element. You don't know people, but please give this a shot. Like, let's give this a week. You might, you might find something that you like. And of course, you see him like, eventually get overwhelmed with like all these. It's his first day, and it's like he already getting overwhelmed with like all these classes and he handling books. He's, fumbling around, and it's like, he's getting overwhelmed. And it's like, as a kid, like you tend to get overwhelmed with certain things that you don't think you're mentally, ready for. And that's the whole thing. Like, Miles doesn't feel like he's ready for a certain task. And it was a funny little moment. It was like, as he's exiting, Miles exiting the cop car, Aaron, like, just to make sure that it's not leaving on like a, bad, like on like a bad note. He just tells him, like, I love you, Miles. Yeah, I know that. And like just typical parent fashion of embarrassing their kid. And he's on the little speaker, like, you gotta say I love you back, just right in front of the school and all these kids looking. It's like, are you serious? It's like, Dad, I love you. You better, Dad, I love you. Dad, I love you. That's a copy. And I kind of want to do it to my kid, just for the sheer moment to just embarrass him, just for the fun of it. You gotta say I love you back. And then he mentions like, tie your shoes, and you see that moment where like, there's a whole theme of choice in this movie when it comes to Miles. Like his shoes is like constantly untied for the most part in like the first act of the film, and it kind of lands him in trouble because he doesn't even take the moment to choose to tie his shoes. And then he ends up going to class, and even then you hear the whole theme with where like they watching this projector of Olivia Octavius, Doc Ock in this universe, ultimate Doc Ock in this universe, talking about the theories of multiverse and choices that we make in our own universe. Like if I decide that today, like I wanted to buy this hint water bottle today, a different universe of me will probably have gone with either regular water, or no water, or a pop, or tea, or another universe went with schnapps or something. Different choices, and that's one of the things. Like different choices branch out into different, other scenarios that go different directions, and you might not think initially it not what your choice, what you do now, might not matter in the long run, but it does. Like it's a domino effect. Even if like with the main continuity Peter Parker, or even the ultimate version, they chose to not act when it came to Uncle Ben and ended up letting a mugger go past them, which inadvertently ended up getting their uncle shot by that said mugger. So inaction can be just as dangerous as action. Well, not I want to say just as dangerous, but just like whether inaction or action, that causes a ripple effect. Whether you mean to or not, it matters. It's all about try to make a right choice. Just make a choice at the very least. I hope it's the right one. And then in another class, of course he meets Gwen Stacy at this time. Like she's because like she got into this universe somehow. I guess when the first attempt of trying to test the Kingpin's collider, it it was in the testing phase, so she kind of like got sucked into the portal into this universe 2 weeks earlier than all the other Spider people. But the fact that like because the different universe Spider people who landed in the Ultimate Universe, their cells are deteriorating slowly because their atoms are recognizing they don't belong in this particular universe, so they slowly killing them. And if she's been here for like almost 2 weeks, how is it that she's not dead already? If I have any cons of that of this movie, that is one that seems like kind of trippy. It's like, how is she's not dead if she's been here for like at least 2 weeks at this point, as it mentions in the film, because she got here before everybody else, at least slightly before everybody else. So she managed to infiltrate the school because her spider sense led her there to try to, I guess, I don't know what she was looking for in that school that eventually led her to the Olivia, I guess the movie they was watching or documentary led her to the lab where Olivia works at, but I don't know why her spider sense led her there instead of directly to the science, but it's whatever. And then the next class, it was like a writing class. Miles got like a complete 0, and it's like a true or false type of kind of essay, not essay, but like a test. And the teacher, had a talk with him. As you mentioned, it's like, Miles, if a blind person took this test and answered the questions randomly, what percentage would they get? 50%? 50%. And most of that will be just writing your name. You obviously, you are a very smart kid. It's very obvious. And it's also obvious that you're trying to quit, and I won't let you. So I'm going to give you an assignment about the Great Expectations. I want you to tell me like what you want in life, or like what's your overall goal in life, and like make that your assignment and hand it to me. So and that's another thing. The Great Expectations is kind of based on Charles Dickens, and it was another thing about like what a person want in life ultimately. And of course, the way that teacher kind of interacted, which is not wrong, but the fact that like you're trying to quit and I won't let you. She should have followed it up with something like I know this is hard. You probably feel like you don't fit in, but please try. Please, give your overall. You might be surprised what you might benefit from this. Many kids will bend over backwards just to get this opportunity. You should not squander this. You are a smart kid. Please try to apply yourself, kind of situation. Because, obviously these people, like the teacher, the parents, they want Miles to apply himself. He's just in that stage, that kind of awkward stage as a kid that doesn't know what he wants yet. He kind of won't know what he wants, but it's not something that everybody else expects him to want, kind of situation. So he goes to his Uncle Aaron, his apartment. It's like a little cool exchange where, his uncle, trying to teach him about how to talk to girls and do the shoulder touch. It's like, you know about the shoulder touch? What? You go to this girl, put your hand on her shoulder, and just go, hey, Like, come on. Like, what is science, man? It's like, come on, just do it. Like, hey, like, hey. It's like, it was great, and it's a great way how that circles back around towards the end. It's like I love it when, just like with like the instant kill thing in Homecoming, find a way to come back in Endgame. This found a way to come back at the end of the movie, and it's like brilliantly seeded. I love when when a good writer brilliantly seeds something that pays off at the end, and it always gives me a thrill. And then of course he sees that Miles's like notebook with all the art that he has in there. And it's like, yo, did you throw these up yet? You throw these up yet? It's like, nah, like I can't go anywhere without Dad finding them. So Aaron takes Miles to this underground area where he used to do some engineering work at, which kind of think of it as like, why would you take your nephew to a spot where he used to do crime at, or at least try whatever. And but he takes him to his like secluded spot so he can throw up his art. And it was a great one of my favorite, at least, well, there's an Uncle Aaron street graffiti art he does at the end of the film that I like better, but this one's pretty good too, with a great expectation graffiti art they throws up. And of course the soundtrack besides the Post Malone, the soundtrack with Notorious B.I.G. and everything, it's like, it's so good. And then you hear like I forgot who did the song, you can get with this or you can get with that. God, what is it? Dang it. What's this? Was it Run DMC? One second. I'm pretty sure it's Run DMC. Oh, it's Black Sheep. I was wrong. But yeah, Black Sheep. And great 90s music. But yeah, he's throwing up his stuff, and then of course the spider comes down, bites Miles, and then next day he's getting like his spider powers is coming in, and of course he's thinking it's puberty. And they show some comics of, instead of like like comics where like in real life how one second here. Like Amazing Fantasy title of the comic. When in real life, that's how it is. But it's like the real tales in the Miles Morales movie. It's the real life tales of Spider-Man, since he's real, kind of in this universe. And somehow, for some reason, they depict, Peter Parker. Well, of course, I don't even know. It's very hard to grasp how this works, because early in the movie you hear Chris Pine go over, his brief origin, guys. All right, let's well, every Spider person has like, let's do this one more time. Okay, let's do this one last time, kind of thing, like going over their origin, briefly. And Chris Pine's version, Ultimate Peter Parker, he goes over how all these successful businesses he's been doing and everything like that, and like all the stuff like from Sam Raimi, universe and what have you, all the things that the main Peter Parker, who's based off of the most recognizable failures. I don't want to say failures, but like what we know from Sam Raimi and like in Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, and that car crashed through the cafe with him and Mary Jane, where he's in his civilian clothes and what have you, and then the car goes over and he just picks Mary Jane up and like of course do the dive to avoid the car. Yeah, and that's what we know the main Peter Parker actually went through, because it's like a culmination of that. But since this is a more, I won't say competent, but it's just like more like well organized, kind of like properly prepared type of Peter Parker that's like handle things a little bit more differently and more like made it like, I want to say better choices, but somehow like choices that ends up benefiting him, where the Peter Parker that we usually that we typically know, it usually most of the time works out, but not in ways that it seems like almost perfection, where in ultimate version of Chris Pine Peter Parker, like that car that smashed through the cafe, he just like sensed it, then turned around and just punched it right back outside the window before it did any serious damage. So different, choices or different scenarios that from the same situation but made different choices. So so it's like, it's I forgot where I was going with this, but you get what I'm getting at. So how's this comic supposed to depict Chris Pine's version of Peter Parker in Miles's universe without, because they didn't know until he died. Nobody knew who his secret identity was, and of course in this version, Peter Parker is blonde, and the one that we know from the main continuity has brown hair. So Ultimate Peter Parker, like, how did he get that comic book just out there, and did he give different name of his secret identity, or like how did that even work without him, his secret identity be outed? It make no sense unless somebody just guessed or something. I don't know. Some writer probably guessed what might happen to him, and Spider-Man just never really bother with questioning it or doing anything about it. But anyway, Miles tried to get a hold of Uncle Aaron because he's the only one he feels like he can actually talk to above his own parents. But he went back to that underground area and found the spider that bit him, and it looks like it was like, it's glitching. Oh no, not glitching, but it's go off those little, like a spurt of venom blast that he will utilize in the future. Then he started brilliantly utilizing comic book art, where he's like get those thought boxes and bubbles, and it's like, why I'm thinking so loud, and it's like that's how you was depict, like when you read like a comic book, you hear their thoughts, and it's like he's hearing his own thoughts very loudly, and of course he's freaking out, he's sweating, and of course he meets Gwen, but she's incognito, she says Gwanda, and I love the name Gwen. One of my favorite, like it became one of my favorite names for a girl, Gwen. And as I mentioned, like, of course, if I have two daughters, one will be Carly, and the other I'm definitely naming Gwen. Because Gwenpool and Gwen Stacy, Spider Gwen, just Gwen all the way. So he's freaking out, and it's like it's like spider sense is like, of course he didn't know what spider sense is right now. It's just this pain in his head, like he's in danger. He's not acknowledging that until like, this fight going on between Peter Parker and Green Goblin, and of course there's at that moment testing the collider again, which is funny that it's called collider and is doing this almost kaleidoscope kind of situation with bending space and time in a way, or at least seeing like the city glitching out in different parts, where it's like a street lamp is bursting into multiple different versions of a street lamp in different universes. Very kaleidoscope type of aesthetic. The art, they're utilizing like your art in a very unique way that's never been seen before, and it's very good. And I think the people behind this also made like a movie like before. It's like something based off like I haven't seen the movie, but Meet the Mitchells or something. I don't know. I think something like that, because it's like a different movie that's kind of utilizing the same art style before, but they kind of like up the ante with this. They took it to a whole nother level, which is like brilliantly done. So, as the fight is going on, while like Spider-Man's trying to stop Green Goblin, while he's trying to take down this collider, because Kingpin, who previously fought Spider-Man on one occasion, that kind of like outed him as a kingpin of crime, and this version of Vanessa and their son, they freaked out, and they, as they trying to drive away, they end up getting into a car wreck that end up killing both of them. And he wants to utilize this collider that brings in, that he can easily traverse different universes, and he's trying to find like a different universe version of his wife and son just to have them back. And I'm thinking to myself, there has to be like, unless you're looking for a particular Vanessa and your son whose Kingpin father is dead or something, why would you take another version of yourself's wife and kid just to keep for yourself, knowing this is like you, and you'll probably just be that other version probably end up probably doing the exact same thing. Who knows? But of course, this causing like devastation, which all the henchmen, I'm surprised they not like Tombstone's not raising. Of course, Olivia's all in for, because she just want to see, because he's a scientist. You want to see what will happen, just to study it, what have you. But you got like Scorpion and Prowler and all these henchmen and Tombstone, like they're not like, or even Green Goblin, but he's insane. So who knows how he feels, but heck, he probably just like the chaos of it. So, but like the others should be raising like a like a hand, like you realize it's gonna end up collapsing the city or potentially the world if you're trying to get your family in the process of end up destroying everything else, with you included. It's like you would think that will raise like a few questions. But Spider-Man sees Miles in danger. He swoops in to catch him, and then their spider sense kind of connect, and he's like, "Oh, you're just like me. I don't want to be. I don't think you have a choice, kid." It's another thing about the thing with choice. It's like, if you don't make a choice for yourself, the universe kind of puts it on you, and half the time you're probably not gonna like it. So he promises like, look, I'm here for you. I will teach you, show you the ropes, but let me just take care of this stuff and be right with you, okay? And he mentions like, you realize your shoes is untied, right? Just kind of reiterating about like, his choice was just leaving it untied, just not choosing not to do anything about it. And so, uh, as he's trying to stop the Green Goblin so he can destroy that collider, Goblin uh, puts Spider-Man through that beam that's going off that ends up causing an explosion, but also, uh, pulling a few different other Spider people from different universes, like the 616 main universe Spider-Man, into Miles' universe, and they got shot out different random different directions in the city. And Goblin is killed in the explosion, but Peter's severely wounded, and he's telling Miles, like, you take this flash drive. Don't trust nobody. He has everybody in his pocket. You need it so you can, destroy that collider so you won't use it again. Otherwise, it'll end up destroying this entire city and everybody you love along with it. You got to promise me you'll do it. And it's like, I promise. And then so he goes away before Kingpin shows up. Kingpin ends up killing this version of Peter Parker to Miles' horror. He runs away with Prowler chasing after him, but he ends up getting away. And the soundtrack, as Prowler is on the screen, very well orchestrated. That wow, it's like very terrifying. It's like, that whole Prowler name is living up to that name. And then, of course, later on that night, the news reports, showing up like that Peter Parker is, Spider-Man is dead. His identity is out there. There was like a eulogy, by his wife, Mary Jane. And of course, Miles is in the crowd listening to this. And he decides, like, okay, I got a promise to keep. I got these spider powers. I got to, be Spider-Man. He knows he has to be Spider-Man at this point, but now he has no mentor. He has to, figure things out on his own. But of course, he still's like, hesitant. And of course, he ends up falling because he tripped over his shoes. He still has not tied it, and in the end, it ends up causing him the flash drive, which breaks on impact as he fell. And then he bumps. He ends up bumping into the main 616 Peter Parker, and of course, you briefly go over his origin, the typical thing, but only he's a little bit older, a little bit out of shape, after his separation from his Mary Jane and the death of his aunt, and bad business decisions and what have you. And so he's typical Peter Parker fashion. He's on like the kind of like a his one of his down moments in life. So this is funny. Like, just I love the voice of Jake Johnson, and like he's right up there with like the iconic voice actors for Spider-Man over the years. And mind you, the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions game utilizes 4 different popular iconic voices for Spider-Man that we knew over the years. Let me make sure I get their names right. I know Neil Patrick Harris played 616 Peter Parker in the MTV Spider-Man animated series, and I need to get like a DVD collection. No, matter of fact, I can easily buy it on Amazon Prime, so I can watch that for like a TV show review. But 1 second here. Okay, yeah, you got Neil Patrick Harris as the primary present day traditional version of Spider-Man. And then you got Christopher Daniel Barnes, who's playing Spider-Man Noir, but he voiced the 90s version of Spider-Man from the anime series. Arguably like the most famous one. Then you got Dan Gilvezan, who plays Miguel O'Hara of the 2099 future version of Spider-Man, but he was also the 80s version of Spider-Man in the Amazing Friends series. Then you got Josh Keaton, who plays Ultimate Peter Parker in this iteration of the Ultimate Peter Parker, but he was also the voice for Spider-Man in the Spectacular Spider-Man series. Arguably, the tie between the 90s Spider-Man as far as like the most iconic Spider-Man version. So you got like the Spider-Man, the new animated series with Neil Patrick Harris, and then you got the 90s TV show Spider-Man, and then you got, of course, Spider-Man Amazing Friends, and then you got Spectacular Spider-Man. 4 different iconic Spider-Man shows, which I need to do a TV show review for eventually, for all 4 of these. Well, maybe not Spider-Man and Amazing Friends, but definitely the other 3. These 4 are so great, and Jake Johnson should be right up there with like the iconic voice for Spider-Man, and Shamik Moore, as a matter of fact. Anyway, during the whole situation with the Collider event, the portal opens up in Peter's room. He sucks him in, and then he realizes he's in a different dimension. You see advertisement for like Coca-Cola, but they call it Cola Soda in this Ultimate universe. So he realized not only he's in a different universe, this Peter Parker here is dead. And it's like he's looking at his face, and it's like his face, but younger and blonde. And obviously he's freaked out. Like, what the hell happened? And so he ends up seeing like Miles at Peter's gravesite. And so he's trying to like tap him on the shoulder, but out of reflex, he Venom blasts Peter unconscious, and then takes him back to his home, tied him up to his punching bag, and started like questioning him. And he finds out, which is like on a guess, which is kind of like a shock to Peter. It's like, wow, it's like that was just a guess. It was like, just pretty much summarized kind of quick fashion, which I appreciate. Like, so you're Spider-Man in that universe, and somehow you travel in this universe. It's like, and then it's like, oh, you can teach me how to be Spider-Man, because the one who's supposed to teach me died, and I need to know how to be Spider-Man. And it's like, well, here's your first lesson: never wash the mouth, wash the hands. And he somehow unties himself, because just like when I did the walkthrough of the Spider-Man PS4 game, I always wanted them to utilize that concept in like a comic book of an experienced Spider-Man, where he's been at the game for so long, he knows how to obviously untie himself, because he's been tied up so many times. He figured out a way to quickly untie himself by distracting the kidnappers, and other things like putting baby powder in the costume to prevent chafing. And a funny thing, which is kind of smart, but Miles probably took it as idiotic, where it's like, oh, look, we're not gonna web swing to this place. Web swing that far? It's like, no, kid. First of all, not on a full stomach. Bad idea. Well, take transportation for most of the way, and then get off, and then web swing. It's easy on the joints, and you don't get tired if you had to, wind up in a battle. You're not tired so quickly. Obviously, this is like a poor man's Mr. Miyagi in a way, which the directors kind of describe how they wanted this primary 616 Peter Parker to be, because he's been at the longest. He's hopping out of Miles' apartment, and then he started glitching, and he mentions I don't think my atoms are jazzed to be in a different universe. And then Miles trying to convince him to stay to help, otherwise Kingpin won't destroy my city. And he's with great power comes don't you dare finish that sentence, don't do it, because obviously, like, this is like a little bit jaded, or at least in this moment, after what he's been going through with, because in his universe, like, he had fallen out with MJ. They separated because she wanted kids. He's scared of, what kind of parent he might be, because, that insinuated, like, a different chapter of his life, adulthood. Well, he's already an adult, but it's kind of like parenthood. Excuse me. And it's like, it scared him because he's not like a teenager no more. He's like, he's he made a choice, but like, I don't want, he made a choice that obviously is disappointing because she wants kids. She loves him. She wants to start family with him. And he, like he said, he got scared. And, so because and then losing Aunt May, his only anchor, or at least, a person that he always can easily go to for like words of wisdom, she's not there anymore. So it's like he's in like a very like, he's in like a very low point in his life. So like hearing that great power comes great responsibility line, he's not want to hearing that right. He's not feeling like hearing that right now. So he's kind of jaded. So, and there was another funny moment where it's like, Miles showing like this flash drive that he needs to like shut the whole thing down. It's like, oh, give me that. It's like, no, I needed to shut it down. I needed to get home. It's like, like, give me the goober. It's like I love the whole goober thing because it comes up a few times. It's like, my Peter Parker called it like a pass key or something. Like, it's always a pass key or a transfer key or whatever key. After a while, I just called it a goober. And it's like I said, he's an experienced Spider-Man. He's like, he stole his fair share of pass keys before, and he doesn't have time to try to remember the technical name for whatever key he's taking. So he just called it a goober, which is kind of smart. It's like, just give me the goober, like, so whatever. And he takes the goober off of Miles, and like Miles convinced him to tag him along. So not only he learns along the way, but try to find a way to destroy this collider. So that way Kingpin can use it again. So they stop to get something to eat, and of course you get like some tips about like of course like you give them these little rudimentary. Well, it's kind of like the wax on, wax off thing with Mr. Miyagi, where it's like you think it's nonsense at first until it's utilized in play. Whereas like, obviously you probably wouldn't want to waste your energy web swinging from one part of the city to a very further part of a target destination where you can easily. That's why like when I use fast travel in the game, I don't feel like, as fun as the web swinging is, you don't want to waste, most of the time web swinging from one end of the city to another part, on the opposite end. You want to like at least get, transportation or fast travel in a way to as close as you can. So that way you can like cut down the web swinging and not waste your web fluid in the process. Cause that is always a key component to Spider-Man's arsenal, that every time he runs out of web fluid in an inopportune time is always like a detriment, because he has to change it, because it's useful for after like a couple of hours before he actually reloads. So, depending on how often he has to utilize it in like a particular situation. So that's like a benefit, to like not waste web fluid. So, of course, this is like he has like sweatpants on. This version of Spider-Man has sweatpants on for most of the first arc, or at least the second half of the first arc. And so the outside of the science building, he has Miles as a lookout as he's like as Peter going through the Kingpin's facility. or Olivia's, I should say, facility or whatever. And so he's crawling through the vents, and then Miles sneaks in behind him, and is like, kind of like weird, not weirding Peter out, but it's like kind of, surprising Peter. It's like, I told you to stay outside. I'm not gonna go abandon Spider-Man again. I can't let Spider-Man die. I can't do it again. And it's kind of like stuns Peter. It's like, he says like, most people that I meet in the workplace usually try to kill me. So you're kind of like a nice change of pace, kid. And it's like, and it's another funny moment where he's like, experienced Spider-Man. He knows, he's been through this. It's like, watch this. It's very standard, supervillain stuff. Watch, he'll say, you have 24 hours. You have 24 hours. It's like, and then so they, break into Olivia's office trying to, get information off her desktop. But of course, Miles don't know how to control his stickiness powers. And so it's like, Peter's immensely like, you have to relax. What do you do to relax? And then you hear like, him singing humming the Post Malone song. And it's like, this Peter's annoying. It's like, oh my God, I got to work with this kid. Yeah. And then he makes so much noise and Olivia's coming in. So like, Miles, turns invisible. And then he has to go, behind the desk to try to get the information while Peter is distracting Olivia. And then of course, Olivia mentions that, this is, you stay too long, your atoms will disintegrate and you'll die here. And I can't wait to see. Kind of like surprising, like Miles had to stop mid typing, like, what? And it's like, and then Peter's like, do your friends call you Doc Ock? Oh, like, and this is Catherine Hahn we're talking about, Agatha all along. Agatha all along. Oh no, my friends call me Liv. My enemies call me Doc Ock. Yeah, and it's like a great surprising moment because it's like Olivia Octavius. I think it was like a good portion of the movie before her last name was revealed. Then you see the tentacles and it's like, yeah, Olivia Octavius. Of course it would be. And then they managed to get away from Olivia and escape the facility, and then Miles had to learn on the go with web swinging, and so they both web swinging away, and then you get to see like also one where it's like he's like teaching, okay, which is the first time I actually get like when I first saw this movie, like the understanding of how the mechanics work with the web shooters, which I could have easily looked up a long time ago. But you press once to release the web fluid until you get a connection to wherever you're trying to connect it to. And then you double tap to disconnect the line. And then you do it in like a rhythm motion. You thwip, release, thwip, release. In the rhythm, thwip, release. And it's like, it's a cool moment. It's like, it's like, it's just, I like that moment. It's very fun. And then, of course, Gwen Stacy comes in, saves the day, from like Olivia before they end up capturing these two. And you get to see a little bit of her backstory. And then, they decided, okay, which, side note, this is main Peter Parker. Like almost all Peter Parkers in any different universe has a Gwen Stacy. I'm surprised. I mean, they didn't have to delve into it, but it should be some acknowledgement that he had a Gwen Stacy too that ended up dying. It was one of his first real girlfriends. And the fact that he's meeting this different version of her, but younger, there's no acknowledgement. And I kind of wish there was some acknowledgement. Like, I used to know Gwen Stacy because she mentions that her Peter Parker was one of her best friends that was the Lizard in her universe. Because in her universe, Peter wanted to help his best friend Gwen in her superhero thing because she was bitten by the radioactive spider instead, and inadvertently turned himself into the Lizard that ended up dying inadvertently by her hands, but which kind of pushed her into the into this, into her Uncle Ben moment. But he should have had some kind of like line mentioning like, yeah, my Gwen Stacy kind of died on my watch, because of because certain actions that I did, and and they kind of like had like a moment where it's like maybe not a word, maybe not say it verbally, but kind of some acknowledgement on both ends, like give like a look like I'm sorry. It may not be like the same person, but it's probably like the only opportunity you get to say like certain things that you want to say to a person that's them but not them, but this is the only way you can do it. And it's like I'm sorry that I couldn't save you, or like in like on both ends. But obviously there's like no kind of like love interest between these two, because not only the age difference, but like they know that this is not their significant friend. So they go to Aunt May's place, and you see like a nice moment between like Aunt May, who lost her Peter, and Peter lost his Aunt May. But this Aunt May is kind of like the Alfred to this version of Peter Parker's Batman. Because he has like a freaking spider cave with different vehicles and like, computer gear and like a, different costume cases for different situations and stuff like that. And of course this makes main Peter Parker kind of jealous. It's like, poser. And it's like, oh yeah, like I totally got shit in the back. I mean, it's kind of the same, but it's like, aside from a cot, it's pretty much the same. I feel sorry for this guy. It's so funny. And I'm not sure how to feel about 100% with this Aunt May being like a Alfred Pennyworth, like, have access to like all this gear. I mean, she can easily know that her nephew is Spider-Man, and he probably told her a lot sooner than the main Peter Parker had done, because that's a different choice he made, where not to tell Aunt May, because that's the standard Peter Parker thing. Like it wasn't until later in his life until he told, or at least some iterations that, or different writers decide to like, yeah, Aunt May automatically somehow knew at a certain point on her own, or she found out accidentally because, Peter left his costume on when he's passed out from a last battle, or he eventually, and some writers kind of like just inadvertently he decided just to tell her eventually after so long. But it's always different interpretations depending on the writer, and it's like I kind of prefer that she automatically knew but decided to like let him tell. He probably had his reasons not to tell her, so I'm going to just play dumb until he decides to tell me on his own. But I don't know how to feel about this May. It's not bad decision, but it's just like, but she's like, oh, like cool, confident, I'm cool, Aunt May. Yeah, I'm not some old fart. It's like, I'm a cool Aunt May who still got some life in her kind of situation. And then they meet like Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, anime Spider-Man, and then Peter Porker. And, Miles trying to convince them, like, they all have to go home. They can't. None of us can stay here behind. Y'all need to go home before you die. So I'm going to, stick with you guys and make sure I close things behind you and destroy it. And, like, they're not confident in Miles' capabilities because he can't utilize his powers on command, which is very unique compared to any of them, because none of them can camouflage or do Venom Blast. And which I kind of like resisted on the way they handling it, because they trying to like, force upon him like, how to like a scrap, or how to hack stuff. Do you know how like a balance in the way of like a ballet dancer kind of situation? And it's like, dude, back the hell off. Like, it's like, cause you're like, and it's kind of like put him back in that mode earlier in the film where he's like, he's being forced upon him, kind of things that is like he's still not ready in a way. He's like still in that gross in like the coming of age kind of situation. So he kind of like he just inadvertently, just by not on command, the opposite of command, turned invisible and then kind of dipped off. And because he got frustrated, kind of situation, he just want to escape the entire situation because he feels ganged up on, essentially. So he goes to his Uncle Aaron's place, and then he discovers that Uncle Aaron is the Prowler. So he runs away and gets back to Aunt May's place, and he's struggling to tell everybody that his Uncle Aaron is the Prowler. And then funny, Nicolas Cage just jump in like, that's pretty hardcore. That's a pretty hardcore origin story. And that cracked me up in the theater. I was like, Jesus Christ. It's like that's a pretty hardcore origin story. And so Doc Ock, Scorpion, Tombstone, Prowler, they all break in and fight all these spider people. And then his Uncle Aaron got a hold of Miles. He realized it was his nephew. And then, of course, he couldn't go through with a kill on Kingpin's orders. Kingpin shoots Uncle Aaron. And Uncle Aaron is dying in the alley, apologizing to Miles. He kind of wanted to make his nephew proud, do something that he could be proud of. And then, of course, somehow, it's not somehow, but unfortunately, Dispatch got a hold of Miles' dad, who was on patrol, and then he has to be there to see this Spider-Man with, sitting beside the dead body of his own brother, thinking that he had something to do with the death. And then, of course, he's, Miles in his dorm room, sad, frustrated, angry, that, his whole life is turned upside down. He's lost his, the only guy who seemed like to understand him, but he, despite everything, he still loved him. And, Peter and the gang let him know, he's like, you're not the only one who's lost somebody. We, out of anybody else, we probably understand you the most. I lost my best friend. Peter lost his uncle. Peter and Standard Peter and Noir Peter lost their Uncle Ben's. And Payne lost her father. And Peter Parker had to explain to Miles, the worst part about this job is that you unfortunately can't save everyone. And then understanding that Miles is completely not ready for this and don't want him to end up getting killed in the process, Peter decides he has to be the one to hang back and allow these others to get home safely. And Miles is like, no, you'll die. I can't, let you stay behind. I made up my mind. I have to do this. You can't do this, and I'm not gonna put you in danger. And then he wants Miles, okay, if you want to come along, try to get past me. Turn invisible or use your Venom Blast on command. Do it right now. And because he can't stay. I mean, he can't come with. And then Miles is like, how I know I'm ready? You don't. It's a leap of faith, kid. And because then when they swing away, Miles' father comes to the door, and a very cool moment where it's not like a speech, but it's having a heartfelt moment behind the door to Miles, who's tied up at this moment. He can't really speak because he's webbed up, and that he's mentioning about the spark he sees in Miles, and he apologizes in a way. He's kind of apologizing for his mistakes of how to handle, because he sees the potential in Miles, but he should be encouraging Miles to find his own way, whatever way he chose to, what he wants to do with his life. He's going to be full. He has his full support, as a father, because he believes in Miles' potential to do great things, and this kind of gives Miles that encouragement that he needs, because a lot of Spider-Man comics that I've read over the years, and a lot of TV shows and movies, like specifically, perfect example is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, where like, or the ordeal that, Peter is dealing with in that movie, most of it, Spider-Man's powers is predicated on his confidence, which some writing might, feel like it can be kind of clunky and arbitrary, or at least it's like, I don't know, like, I want to say, well, in some cases it might be bad writing, but it's like, it's been known from time to time where it's like Spider-Man's powers is geared towards his confidence in himself. And once Miles has that confidence, he's able to, control his Venom blast that he's been mentally blocking himself from accessing on command. And, now that he's be able to control his powers and understand, like, what he has to do, despite, not knowing what's to come, he's taking that leap of faith. And he's making a choice finally that, like, I'm choosing to be Spider-Man. I'm choosing to continue on in Visions Academy and better myself. I'm choosing to do, taking my art to the next level. Thanks, because he's utilizing all what he's learned, the bits and pieces of what he's learned from, that's the good parts that he's, the good advices and bits and pieces that he got from Uncle Aaron, his father, and Spider-Man, and utilizing it onto himself, but doing it in his own way rather than trying to do it their way. He utilizing, bits and pieces of their methods and forming it to make it his own. And I love that. It was, great, mark of a great storytelling here. So he goes to Aunt May's place, takes and she gives him one of Peter's costumes that he spray painted to make it his own, in the iconic Miles Morales costume, the black and red. And you hear that awesome song, "What's Up, Danger?" And he's taking that leap of faith, and it's like great cinematography where he's like, looks like he's instead of like at the beginning, it's kind of like a stark contrast of how at the beginning of the film where he's trying to, jump off the roof, but he doesn't have that confidence. His shoes is untied still. In this, his shoes are completely tied. He's ready. And he's, he's got that, he's leaping off, and he's like doing it so force and confidence and like in gung ho and grit, and and just like he's ripping up the windows that he's sticking to, and it's like he's dive bombing, and the way it's shot, where it looks like he's falling up, and it looks so beautifully shot as compared to the beginning where he's like just falling down, like he's still not there yet, where he's at this point he's rising. He almost looks like he's rising through, up as Spider-Man. So the Spider Gang goes to this ball that the Kingpin is throwing in honor of Peter Parker, which is like obviously a very tasteless moment. And we're having like the maitre d's dressed up in Spider-Man mask with bows and ties. And of course, Peter wants to stop to talk with Mary Jane, just get what he wanted to say off his chest, because it's played for laughs. And obviously he's like in a moment where he's kind of like, he wants to say to her what he always wanted to say, but didn't have the courage to say and didn't choose to say. He has an obvious arc in this, where as far as like his choices in the matter, through this movie has been, inaction on his part, or just, bad choices on his part. And rewatching this, I'm thinking to myself, okay, he obviously in this moment realized in a funny manner, but he realizes he's probably not going to see his Mary Jane ever again, because he's content with the idea that he's gonna die, in his universe, while trying to get these other people home. Because despite his disheveled look and like his jaded, moments, in the end, he's still Peter Parker. He's still Spider-Man. Just like when I did a review for Batman Forever, and like Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne's in the crowd in the circus, and like Two-Face is threatened to blow up the entire circus with people in it if Batman doesn't reveal himself. And he's like, he jumps up, it's like, even though nobody can hear him, he screams, "Harvey, I'm Batman!" He doesn't care. He's like, he damn everything else. He's not gonna allow a crowd full of people to die just to keep his own secret. Now, of course, this is a stark contrast to Batman: The Dark Knight movie, where it's like Alfred tells him to endure. That's the point of Batman. He can be the outcast. But in this moment, Peter, like, despite everything and despite his jaded outlook on the great power, great responsibility, no matter what, he'll do the right thing, because that's the point of Spider-Man. In the end, he always, takes responsibility and do the right thing for others, despite himself. But he goes to Mary Jane just to say, like, of course, she wants bread, and like he's about to like just spill the beans about like, kind of. You understand? He's trying to talk about like the whole kid situation. Like, I should have been more attentive. I should have, take the time to listen and understand what you're coming from. And like, he wants to say all that, but it's like he turn it into like a whole thing with bread. But he's just embarrassing himself, and then Gwen has to steer him away. Which is like a funny moment, but you can see where it's coming from. It was like, it's probably the last time, in his mind, it's probably the last time you're ever going to see MJ. So they go to the collider, and of course, Kingpin is starting it back up and causing glitches all over the city. And Miles show up to help the gang, and you get a funny little moment where like Peter's like proud of Miles of finally being able to utilize his powers on command. He's like, "Yeah, great job, Miles. Do I want kids?" And they fight off like the henchmen and everything like that, and like they managed to get a control of the collider with the flash drive, and like Miles. Well, everybody is saying their goodbyes, but they more specifically for Miles, because this is his arc. And Spider-Man Noir takes this the what's up cube with the color cubes that you can twist around. He lives in a world black and white, so he cannot tell what color it is. Even though he know what color is, he's trying to figure out the colors of the cube that he's playing around with in Aunt May's house. And it's like, is it purple? No. Is it magenta? No. He doesn't say magenta, but it's like he's naming colors he's not getting right. But he knows what color is, even though he doesn't live in a world that's half colors, which how he knows what purple is. But he's taking that home with him, and he's saying his goodbyes. And like, it's a nice little shot where you see like these random cities like popping in this little vortex things, and as soon as he lands in, you got this black and white city. He's falling back into his own world, and you see Penny falling back into her world. And then and a funny moment with Peter Parker is probably like my favorite moment of Peter Parker, where he's giving Miles his cartoon mallet, like, "Here, it fits in your pocket. That's all, folks." And you hear like Jake Johnson and Peter Parker like, is he allowed to say that legally? Because it's Sony, and they work with Marvel, who work with Disney, and then you hear like a Warner Brothers line, and it's like, I'm surprised maybe one of us just let them have it. Let's let them have it. It's not even a big deal. It's like not something that they didn't want to like go to court over. So, so he goes back to his cartoony world, and like Gwen goes back, and it's like a nice little moment where it's like, you can see that Miles is still like wet behind the ears when it comes to like getting the girl and romancing the girl. He's like, friends, yeah, friends, and then they dap each other up, and you can see the potential for a relationship, which is obviously might come up in the sequel. But I'm kind of glad, and I think a lot of people are glad, they did not explore that in this film. It's completely platonic kind of friendship for right now, and we don't want to need to. It's not necessary to have like. I appreciate some movies, especially superhero movies, where this doesn't need to delve into, like, the main character doesn't always need to have like a love interest to fixate on or anything like that. I mean, aside from maybe like the Peter Parker and MJ thing, that's the only thing that's like a prerequisite, like, because that's his arc, because he's already established to be with Mary Jane, and it's just they already have, in a relationship. They're already in a relationship or about to get back into one, and but that's not a relationship love thing. It's not like a primary focus, and it'll be completely out of nowhere or out of left field or unnecessary in this material. So she falls back into her uterus, and as the Kingpin is about to attack both the last two Spider-Man, and Peter is like, we need to handle this. You can't handle this on your own. And Miles like trips him up the same way Peter did to him. It's like, come on, man, you gotta go home, because like you stay any longer, he's gonna die. So it's like it's now or never kind of moment. And of course, like his arc with the whole, reconnecting with Mary Jane and actually starting a family that he was so scared to have. Because I guess most people at a certain age, it's just like they don't feel like they can be ready as parents, or don't know how they gonna handle being parents, especially given the fact that Spider-Man in his life, how can he raise a kid, given the fact of what he does, and like, and like given the fact that what he learned from Aunt May and Uncle Ben, can he repeat that or apply that to his own kid or potential kid? And like he mentions to Miles, like, which you automatically know what he's referring to, and he tells Miles like, how I know I'm ready. And Miles tells him like, yeah, you don't know. And it's like, it's a leap of faith. And then Peter just finally lets go and falls back into his universe, and it's like, not bad, kid. And it's like, I loved it. That was like a great, the best version of mentor and mentee. Probably, I think I even put this slightly above Tony and Tom Holland's Peter Parker as like the best, representation of mentor and mentee in like a movie format. Not even just superhero, but like a movie format in general. That is just brilliant stuff. Where he's like, Peter Parker is just, he can leave confidently, knowing that Miles is gonna be okay. And there is a comic that I want to do where like Peter Parker meets Miles Morales for the first time in like his Ultimate Universe, and like it's a slight spoilers, but eventually we'll get around to it. But as Peter Parker is about to leave back to his own universe, and Miles, who never got the chance to work with or learn under his universe, Peter Parker, because he died, he asked, 616 Peter Parker is like, am I cool, doing this? Do I have your permission to be Spider-Man? Is it all right? And it's like in the Peter Parker is telling him like, oh, absolutely, you have my complete blessing, man. Like, just go ahead. Like, I have full confidence in you. You can handle this thing. Just, and he gives like, before he goes, he gives like these little rules that as much as he can before the portal closes. It's like, don't let Aunt May date Doc Ock. Don't fool around with clones, or don't mess with any black goo symbiote things, that kind of stuff. And it's like, trying to pass on some tips so he can avoid certain pitfalls, when he's Spider-Man, so he won't repeat the same mistakes. And like, I just like Peter Parker and Miles Morales dichotomy is just like great. It's probably up there with like Batman and Robin as far as like great duos and partners in crime. That unlike Batman, where he's like kind of like as far as like raising or teaching, it's kind of like, I want to say hardcore, but it's just like, I don't know. It's different ways of them, like all the Robins that he taught, and then Spider-Man just had Miles Morales, and maybe Silk in some cases, as far as like teaching them how ways to be Spider-Man. But he's doing it more like, I want to say kid gloves, but it's kind of like catch more flies with sugar, kind of, if you pardon the pun, with Peter's method as compared to a very hard training type of, kind of, like a hardcore martial arts master teaching child soldiers type of mentality that Batman kind of implements, but it's not like no caring involved, but it's kind of like very apples and oranges. But I think personally I like the way Peter Parker handles teaching Miles, overall, compared to the way Batman had to teach all the Robins. But now is Miles up against Kingpin by himself, which he managed to take down thanks to the Uncle Aaron's shoulder touch, like, hey, and then zaps him with the Venom Blast, and then swings him against the collider, not the collider, but like the switch to cut the whole entire thing off, and then it ends up imploding on itself. And I didn't mention this earlier, but the Kingpin design, it's probably the only thing that if I have any kind of grievance with, it's not like a big deal. It's like a slight nitpick about the overall design, where you just like this big block with a face in front of it, and it's like, I don't 100% know that I guess it works in a way for this universe the way it's designed, but it's just like, I know Kingpin is like a big dude, typically fat or just fat muscle, but it's just like a big block, with a face in front of it, and it's like, wow, it's like I'm kind of curious what other designs they had in mind before they ended up with this design. Maybe this is the best result that they came up with, they want to work with compared to the others, but I don't know. So they, Miles captured the Kingpin, and like, he had this little, kind of cool moment with like Miles Morales in Spider-Man costume hugging his father, but his father kind of freaking out, like, okay, why is this kid hugging me? It's like, and he's his final one was like, "It's a pleasure working with you. I love you." Like, wait, what? And it was like a great moment. So now, Miles is set as this universe's Spider-Man from this moment forward, and it ends with like somehow Spider-Gwen, gaining access to the multiverse to find Miles again, and they probably on their next adventure leading into the sequel. But of course, the end credits, you see like Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man of the future of the 2099. Of course, in the first interpretation, when the comic book of Miguel O'Hara began way back in the late 90s, when this concept was created, is like a different universe, alternate future. But after the past like several years, they kind of like altered it, where now 2099 is like a definite future for the main 616 universe. So it's not an alternate timeline. It's like, it's supposed to be depending on, now it's always been like the X-Men has their own little interpretation of what the future might be, but it, that's them. But from what I remember, 2099 is supposed to be the definite future now of the 616 main universe. But they might, in the movie format, go with like an alternate future for uh, uh, Peter Parker 616. Well, this one is voiced by Oscar Isaac, Moon Knight himself. And it's funny how most of these actors are in like the MCU at this point. Haley Steinfeld and Stacy is, Kate Bishop. Uh, Jefferson Davis being voiced by Brian Tyree Henry, who was Festos and Eternals. Catherine Hahn, who's Agatha. So, and then Oscar Isaac, who's gonna be Moon Knight. So it's funny how like things turn out. I won't say funny, but it's like Disney want to utilize these guys as much as possible because they're so great. Because especially when it comes to Phase 4, we need like a new batch of heroes and villains moving forward. So yeah, that was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Great film, fantastic, holds up so freaking well, and I hope they maintain that quality in the sequel. But I also hope Sony applies this method towards No Way Home, where just like Miles is the center of the focal point of the story, and everybody who's working around him, they kind of hope they kind of apply that with No Way Home, where Tom Holland needs to be the focal point and everybody's working around him, but Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield needs to be like the way Jake Johnson Spider-Man worked with Tobey Maguire as like a mentor. They kind of have to apply that in some way, depending how soon they bring those guys in, which is kind of obvious. They still want to be on the hush-hush about it, but it's freaking obvious at this point. It's not really much of a secret. Especially if you got all their villains. It doesn't make no sense to not bring them in, halfway through it at the very least. But yeah, it's so people are concerned with like, it's being like too bogged down with too many things. And there's no surprises because it's like, it's like, hey, we all know at this point, like, what's the story going to be kind of thing. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be some surprises still left in here. Like, what'll be kind of cool is like those voice actors from those different TV shows that I was mentioning about. They make some kind of surprise cameo in this because you don't want them to be overlooked. That'd be cool. But if it's not a huge deal, but that'd be cool if you get these guys, Neil Patrick Harris and so on, to have some kind of like a voice on dispatch. You hear like the 90s Spider-Man on the intercom or something like that. That'd be cool. And then maybe like the Spider-Verse somehow make some kind of break, some kind of surprise cameo in like an end credits or something. That'd be a nice surprise that nobody saw coming. That'd be great. There might be still some surprises, that's not being brought up. That'd be cool to see. So don't discount the surprises yet. You might think what might be happening. You might still be kind of shocked. So yeah, and the whole theme of choice is playing heavily throughout this film, and it's done. It pairs well with the coming of age story with Miles, where it's like, you have, he's making his own choices and like it's not being forced upon him, or at least it was forced upon him, but he decides take a leap of faith, but also like his father not trying to push it on him and allow him to essentially make his own mistakes, make his own choices, and learn from those choices his own, and not trying to like micromanage him in a way and like give him room to breathe. And it's like, obviously he's going to be like I can see a potential street artist in his future as something like a career as like an artist, if you allow him to, spread his wings a bit and allow him to fall and pick himself back up. So yeah, Yeah, that's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So that wraps up all the Spider-Man movies until like I get No Way Home on the docket. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm not gonna do a spoiler review on that very night. I want to wait until that Friday after I see on that Thursday. I'm going to see on that Thursday at 3 p.m. in my local movie theater. And then I'll do a spoiler review the next day. So I don't want to do a spoiler review right away. I don't want to do that to anybody. But by the next day, I'm going to have full spoilers, but it's up to you. Is on you to, because I'll have full spoilers in big letters, so that way you'll know there's a spoiler review. Don't click on it if you haven't seen it yet, but I'll have it posted up, so if you have seen it, you can check it out and hear my thoughts on that movie when it comes out. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of late right now, so I'll probably have to wait till maybe tomorrow to do my Lego Batman review, and then do a new discussion video afterwards. So look forward to that on Saturday, probably early afternoon Saturday. And then I'll probably continue on with the Pokemon Brilliant Diamond walkthrough. Or I might pop into some Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist and try some online matches for a good 30 minutes at least. See how they is. Because probably my first time actually, playing around with online matches and see. I might end up losing because, depending on what players I end up getting, but we'll see. So don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. If you want to further support the channel, please check out my Patreon. That's patreon.com/talkativecarl. You can follow the links in the description if you're watching this on YouTube in the future. And I will see you guys tomorrow. And possibly I'm going to have to, if not Sunday, definitely Monday, I need to start, giving like a few movie reviews, Christmas movie reviews, and get those, start like trucking those out now that like I'm, not completely finished with Batman related movies. I'll eventually have more animated movies to do, but I'm gonna probably wait till the new year to start like sprinkling them here and there. Definitely after the new year, I'll do Batman Year One, and then if I feel up to do like Batman Ninja or Under the Red Hood at some point, I'll spread those out here and there throughout the next year whenever I feel like putting it on the docket. So look forward to that too. So yeah, now I'm signing off. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.